Hi, folks. Um, there's been something going on this week that has made me aware of how many of you are dealing with an impulse to kill yourself or to end it all, or just kind of a thought in your head or a feeling in your body that is strongly urging you to consider options of suicide. So I want to talk about this. I'm actually really passionate about this. I know a lot about this. So if it's relevant to you, great. And even if it's not, please keep listening because I want you to be able to share this information with the people in your life that it might be relevant for. So, so let's talk about it a little bit. So primarily what's occurring is as people are stepping into awareness and they're finally available to life. And life is touching them. And the sensitivity and the willingness to receive life instead of habitual patterns of blocking it out, of shutting down, of hiding. Instead, you're available and life is touching you. And also what's available is old patterns of wounding, which I talk about a lot. And you'll hear it a lot in my blog and on my videos, is all of that ancient pain that you know very well in your body and most of your life has been conditioned to be avoided or repressed and hidden away until another time when you might be able to process it. And it's all sitting in there, that wounded baggage. And finally, the frustration or lack of fulfillment in your life has brought you to my doorstep or another teacher's doorstep who's pointing the way towards fulfillment. And it's about letting life come in and touch you and being touched and being available and being present to this moment, living now. And something that you're faced with is a lot of pain. And some of you are experiencing a really strong impulse of suicidal tendencies or suicidal messages. And so I want to talk about specifically what this is. So because so much of my life is being experienced at the quantum field and I'm watching formlessness coming into form, I can read all this information that's going on. And what I can see, what I know, is that inside of those wounds, so wounds you've had your whole life, wounds you've had since you were 3 years old, or wounds you had when you were 15 and your first love broke your heart, some of those wounds arise and they get embedded in the body. And because you can't process it at the time, you don't have the tools, you don't have the time, you don't have the willingness, any of the above, all of the above, and poof, it gets repressed and put inside the body and sort of hidden away. And I mean, it's there and you're aware that it's there because every other heartbreak you have afterwards feels just like that first heartbreak. So you're still aware of it. But what happens when you begin to actually become available to yourself and available to life is that wound begins to unpack itself. And now some of these wounds have kind of this, I like to call it an encoding. I like to say it, those of you that may have seen The Matrix, I think it's just a great vocabulary point because you know what? It was good. They got a lot of stuff right. That encoding around an owie, some of them have a specific encoding. And the encoding is like this. It would basically read, this pain, in this case heartbreak, is so painful that I will do everything possible to avoid it being experienced, including kill the organism before I allow myself to experience it again. So it's basically an encoding that's wrapped around a particular owie. So there you are, sitting in awareness, sitting in meditation, spending time in silence, being present, and you are noticing the fear, massive amounts of fear, or rage, or grief, or sadness that's arising. And that some of these owies are arising, and some of them are encoded with this encoding that says, we will not feel this owie. It is so buried, and I will do the job so well that I will literally kill the organism before I experience this pain. And so you hit that wall, and that's what it feels like. It feels like a suicidal tendency or a suicidal urge. All it is a simple encoding. And I want you to know that. I want everyone to know that. Because when you know exactly what it is, you can move through it. You can simply carry on. It's just a messenger at the door. Carry on towards that owie. And it will sometimes feel, ironically, it's an incredibly random coding, because it can be coding sitting there from when you were 5 years old and you didn't get to wear your favorite orange dress. Something so innocuous and so minor. And for some reason, that's the encoding. And I tell you, as an adult, there's really no big deal to feel it. It can come back up through awareness and heal itself, no problem. But when you hit up against it, it has this encoding for some reason that says, no, 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 we will kill ourselves before we feel this pain. When you actually kind of disregard, carry on, move into the pain, it's like grief over not wearing your green shirt. But some of them are really profound. Some of them are some fairly deep wounds. But every time you hit that kind of encoding that says, I will kill the organism before I feel this pain, every time you hit it, it's so jolting. And particularly when it arises in someone who's very sane and may have never experienced that impulse in their life, may never even have done the typical 19-year-old or 18-year-old suicide drama, my life is horrible, identity crisis. Even if you didn't do that, it can be so shocking to come across this encoding. And it jolts the system. And lots of times, I remember, part of the reason I'm so passionate about this is this showed up for me on the other side of awakening so profoundly. I had so many owies encoded with this coding that I literally spent like years bypassing and moving through these profoundly powerful urges to end it all. I had the good fortune to be able to see at the quantum level what was going on, but I get to share that with you now and tell you what's going on. And I can tell you straight up, I know it's not in the Guru Handbook of when you fall into awareness, it'll all be bliss. The reality is I have since worked with a number of people who have been very, very clear and had very, very clear awakenings. And the other side of it were met with wild amounts of suicidal tendencies, really, really months of it. And I've had to point out to them what it is so you can just sort of move through it. It's almost like disregarding it and carrying on through. That's all it is. It's just this obnoxious bit of programming around random owies where in your being you can sometimes experience fairly profound owies. It might even be sort of levels of sexual abuse or deep trauma to the system, and it doesn't have that programming. It just shows up. And really boring ones, like I didn't get to have my favorite popsicle, are encoded with a suicidal tendency. It's wildly random programming. I don't really know how it's so random, but that's what it is. It's basically programming. When owie occurs and it gets repressed in the body, some of them get repressed with this bit of coding that are basically supporting the fact, supporting you never having to experience it. It is in your body. It is needing to be met. It will be healed. And you get to do that job. And awareness can do it in such a simple way without you having to do much. But you don't have to take those suicidal tendencies super serious. You don't have to believe them at all. And once you understand this is simply coding around a random owie, move on through and get to the owie. So when you're faced with it, in your meditation, in your stillness, at a retreat weekend, when someone's digging at the pain, when your partner or your boyfriend or somebody is saying something to you and it's creating a rant in your head, and the rant in your head is that you can't handle it anymore, you have to end it, you feel like killing yourself, you feel like it's over, That is programming, opening itself up to help you avoid having to actually access the original pain, which might have been heartbreak when you were 14 years old. And now as an adult, you absolutely, and particularly through awareness, can handle it. Yeah. So I hope this supports you, and I might talk about this more. I'm actually incredibly passionate about it because you would be surprised how often it comes up and how many of you are actually stumbling upon this. And I get how shocking it can feel to the system. And truthfully, that it's nothing to bother about. Continue on. It's just a random piece of programming. So that's all I got to say.